worked in the past with World Bank, Citibank, private equity across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation industry promoted by the government of India.
रमन भाई, मैं ये बता दूंगा ना सारा, आप क्यों बता रहे हो? मैं बता दूंगा।
अरे अच्छा, मैं कुछ नहीं बोलूं?
नहीं, आपके बोलने से क्या? You are the man who has created it all. You are our mentor, our guide.
Okay. We'll come to that. So Deepak and I have shared the joint speaking opportunities very many times, multiple times. He too, in various shapes and forms, has suffered me for a long time. He and my wife used to study together, and that is the time I was quoting her. So we've known each other for a rather long time. So Deepak, if you insist on talking about that, I'll hand it over to you. I had a couple of paras to talk about you, but I'll let you talk about yourself. There you are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And guys, really a pleasure to be with you. You know, Raman said कि ये करना है, मैंने कहा ये तो जरूर करना है. And by the way, we have so many from your college with us, from your university. There's a big mafia of yours in Invest India. And you guys are doing some excellent work. I have to say, I have to compliment each and every one of you. Great work being done. And just to let you know, and Raman Bhai knows that Sanjeev Bichindani and I go back to school and college together. Same section and class in school and same college, same course in college together. Well, I shouldn't call it college. We show off a little by calling it a temple of learning, that's Stephens. But it takes us back to a long time. So it's a long association and truly a pleasure that you're all with us. आज कोई lecture college नहीं है मेरे साथ, तो ऐसा कुछ होगा नहीं. And I'll give you the quick background as to how I'm here. Invest India कैसा बना. And we've also requested Aastha Grover, who's the head of Startup India, to join us today. She is mentoring startups daily. She has created the ecosystem. So she will walk you through with that one. But I will just share a few thoughts with you myself. First, I must give you the background. So the person who's mentored the startup of the government itself is Raman. And I'm not saying it is there. And let me...
Toko. Hey, you're recording this, right? I want to use it back on him.
No, please. And this is a fact. And I'll tell you क्या हुआ. So 2015, you know, every country has an investment promotion agency. उसका काम होता है foreign investors को help करना, helping policy making in the country, making it good for investors, easing their journey. India did not have one till 2015. So when Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi came into power, he wanted one to be done. And one of the good success factors of Gujarat was where they had created an agency like this. So in many ways, we are a startup within the government system itself. So we are a startup of the government. It's a very interesting platform. It's interesting in the sense that all the state governments, so we created it as a company, and all the state governments and the government of India together own 49%. So it's probably the only platform where all the state governments and the central government come in together. The rest 51%, we gave it out to the private sector just because it involves a lot of private sector, but more interestingly, also because we wanted this agency to get some sense of freedom and not be totally within a government context. So keep that in mind. So the first lesson on that is how do you structure the vehicle on which you will be driving thereon to meet your objectives. That is a very critical aspect of when you are starting a startup. Now, the other problem on that is that as your objectives keep changing, you might want to see if you can create a flexibility in your vehicle on how you can do it. But sometimes the chances are you may not be able to do it, but do keep that in mind, that spend time in structuring how you want that vehicle to be created. The second thing, and this is where what I was alluding to, Raman, we created a board of directors, which was sort of in sync with what we wanted. So we have 6 directors from the government. We have representative from the Cabinet Secretariat. By the way, it is now looked at as one of the most well-represented boards in the country, both looking at the private and the public sector. I mean, we have stalwarts from the government in the senior most positions. And each one of you, if you look at their personal bios, they were right there who were wanting to bring in change. And then we had on the private side. So that is where Raman came in. For example, we actually reached out to him and said, please join us. We have Anand Mahindra, who's the Doyen of Industry, please join us. And Pankaj Bhai, you know, Cadila, where you've just seen the new vaccine we brought for you, which is a nasal vaccine, again him. So similarly, this was a board which constituted of people who had very high credibility and recognition in the market, who knew what it was to start a new company in the context of how it ought to be done. And at the same point of time, they were open to change and new ideas. Very important. So what was I looking for when we created this? These were our objectives, what we wanted from our guides. You need to understand that every time you will associate yourself with a partner or an individual or anyone, you need to be clear what you need out of them and what they will bring to you. Your jigsaw will have many pieces. It depends how many pieces you create in it. Luckily, when you're doing a startup, you can keep increasing those number of pieces. Each piece is unique. And each of those jigsaw pieces are the stakeholders you will interact with, our partners you will bring to you, our mentors you will bring to you. So see that you have a larger number of those pieces and see that they all bring in something very interesting and unique, but also see that they all add into a same picture, which you are heading for. And I'm not just saying it, it is a very difficult exercise. This is something you do need to spend your time on. We spent a lot of time on that. Before I come on to just the startup, let me tell you what Invest India does today. We started with 2 people. Today we are about 360. And Raman has been a mentor and a guide and a very respected member of the board right through. In fact, he's fought a lot. And I must tell you why. Look at it that the government is basically a buy-side construct. You know, you have a buy side and a sell side in life. Are you with me on that one? The government is a buy side construct. Their thought pattern is that of a buy side. And what are we trying to establish within that? A sell side company. That means what you're trying to do within a larger context is set up something which is inherently challenging the larger context itself. That is what your role in any case is. You will be bringing that disruption in the system. And it's going to be a huge challenge, both personal and official. And that is where, you know, I have to thank Raman a lot because we run with these challenges every day. A new mindset to be brought in, a new thing wanted to do. And that is where how we created our board, where they were there to support us. They understood what we wanted to do. Now, let me tell you very quickly what we did. I've got 4 verticals. My first vertical is investment promotion and facilitation. It first started off only as the single point of contact for
Deepak, while you spoke of the 300 odd people, you have a fair representation from Ashoka. Any number that you can talk about of the 300? Is it a double-digit number that you have from Ashoka?
हाँ भाई साहब अब double digit हो गया. Very good people. I must tell you, of these 350 all, everyone is from premier institutions. You will know it. You will go on our website and see it. IIT, IIM, Ivy League, they're all there. And we are also the single largest contributors to Ivy League globally and other main institutions. You know, the work experience here is very rich. And that's what I was coming to. And very good quality of people from Ashoka.
So before you go on to the next one, talking about Invest India, I want to pitch a little for Invest India because many of the students here have gotten in touch with me to say, where do they go and hone their skills? And actually, to some of you, I gave examples of Invest India. Deepak has picked up some people from Indian Angel Network, and I advised them that they should accept the job with Invest India because of the width and depth of what Invest India teaches you. And remember, in very many classes, I have said you have to act like a sponge. You have to absorb, you have to learn, and there is a learning all there. It is institutions such as Invest India which can give you that width and depth. And in what all areas they operate, now Deepak will talk about those areas. Deepak, back to you.
और एक चीज याद रखना जो रमन भाई ने बोला है उसके साथ, money will not be the biggest criteria. And guys, it's easy for me to say that because when I was graduating, the day one institutions were the ones which paid the highest. I mean, that time we all joined Citibank or investment banking and all, only because Citi was the highest paying job. And I'm talking of the late 80s. And you suddenly realize down the line, and this is a big chain, Raman Bhai, which I'm seeing. So I'm actually somewhere in the middle to low side. I mean, I've got people who've taken 90% pay cut to join. But the good thing about this generation is they're looking for a meaning. This is what I have realized. Each one of them who are on the screen with us today, and this is my learning from them. They look for a meaning. उनको पता है पैसा जितना भी है, ज़्यादा चाहिए, कम चाहिए, वो नहीं है, वो बन जाएगा. But that is where it was. So now I was coming to the point, what do we do? So we were started with a specific cabinet note बना कि आप foreign investors को हिंदुस्तान लेके आएंगे. So what we do is we do promotion, we target, we've got 18 targeting strategies on how we get foreign investors or investors per se, and how we work with them. We'll sit down at some other point of time and look at that. Then we realized that the market was also, or the government also was changing huge policies, and new policies were being created because the government was going through a huge transformation, and that was in response to the transformation which India is undergoing. By the way, you guys are very lucky. You are at that inflection point in our history where we are going through unprecedented transformation ever in human history, both in terms of scale and the pace at which it is happening. And you are at the center of it as a generation. It's a very strong statement, and I'll tell you why. You will be 1.4 billion by 2025. You'll be the largest human resource within a single national boundary. And within that, 1 billion of you will be under the age of 35. Your average age will be 28, 29. You'll be the youngest nation in the world for the next 80 years. That is the scale. The pace at which you are changing, unprecedented in human history. I'll give you just one example at the pace. And this also shows the challenging thing which each one of you has to go through. And the challenge is that everything is possible, but nothing is certain. Everything is a moving part in your life. And how do you bring it down? And that is what, in any case, is your biggest strength as startups. But on the pace of change, let me tell you, I've told you the scale. You will all agree with me, data is the new oil, right? Data is what is going to define countries and their progress and their wins going forward. And as I always give this example, 36 months ago, your global ranking in per capita data consumption, per capita, was 122 or 123. 12 months ago, your ranking, global ranking in per capita data consumption was #1 in the world. You consumed more data than US and China put together. And your story has only just begun. You're the second largest country on the net. You're the largest, not yet on the net. You're just 750 million on the net. Every second, 3 new people are joining the net, and 2 of them from a village in India. That is your next challenge, guys. You are sitting in a very privileged position. But that privilege is no longer going to remain with you. Because what the new digitization has done, the new Digital India initiative by this government, it has democratized opportunity and the access to opportunity. Anybody sitting in a small remote village still today has the same access as anywhere else. And this work from home means you will have to reinvent yourself every day. That is the only way you and your startup will do. Otherwise, somebody else with that hunger in the stomach will come and take it away from you. You are no longer just sitting on a privilege because you are in a privileged institution. And remember that as a startup from day one, you are never privileged. It's only the ones who are perpetually scared that will survive. now takes me to the next part. How we keep changing to the market adaptation. And remember to do it in a government context जहाँ पे हर चीज स्टील में बन जाती है. एक बारी लिख दिया उससे आप हिल नहीं सकते. Then we realized that the government required a lot of support because new policies had to be created. So we became the agents that we would come and bring back to them कि this is the pain level. ये इतनी problems हो रही है investor को, इसको change करें, इसको कैसे change करें? How do we create a policy around it? So that we also started making policy. So, you know, you have these new production linked incentive policies or upgrading of industrial parks or the FDI policy, vagera. All that started happening in the team. What am I saying? We are constantly on a daily basis organizing ourselves, even as here, to meet market requirements. That meant I keep changing the structure of this organization too. The second vertical which I have was Startup India. You know, January 16th, 2016 is when the Prime Minister launched Startup India. I remember I was called on the 7th and said कि अब एक startup होगा और तुम लोग उसका ध्यान रखोगे. उस टाइम मेरे पास 6 लोग होते थे. We were just 6. We just started. मैंने रमन भाई को फोन किया, स्टार्टअप क्या होता है, उसका डेफिनेशन क्या बनाए, तो इन्होंने मुझे एक कॉन्वोलेटेड सा अंग्रेजी में जवाब भेज दिया था. रात की बात थी. So then we defined what a startup should be in India. It started from there. Aastha will tell you the story. Aastha is going to come after me, and we requested her to let go of her other appointments today to share this with you. She had Startup India. We started from there. You are the youngest startup nation in the world. You know, when you compare yourself with the West Coast, vagera, they started their startups in 1960s, 1950s. And look where you are today. You are number 3 in the world in number of unicorns. You're number 2 in the world in number of startups. You're number 1 in the world in new startups adding every day. In fact, this is now a case study in global business schools on how an effective policy is structured, created, implemented, executed with an outcome where you see such results in 72 months. And let me give you how fast you are changing. 2019, you added a unicorn every 31 days. Sorry, 2020. 2021, you added a unicorn every 10 days. We are in 22, you've added a unicorn every 5 days. It is unbelievable what you guys are doing. But let me tell you one for me, which is most heartening, and which is something you guys have to learn again, and which is what I keep coming back to you. Your privileged position is not going to last too long, and I'll tell you why. How many districts are there in India? रमन भाई आप नहीं बोलिएगा, वैसे आपको भी पता नहीं होगा.
I have no clue, man.
Which is the basic concept of India, and a number of you are public policy students. One, understand the startup policy, how it was created in India. That will give you an example. Shubham, you are completely off the mark.
748.
Don't just keep throwing numbers at me. Ansh मुझे बोल रहा है 14,000.
Something will stick.
Ansh, you should just forget it. और किसी ने अभी Google करके मुझे बोला है 748. भूमिका Google कहाँ तुम कर रहे हो? So we have about 739 districts in India, but I'll tell you what I was coming to. I was coming to the point, in this short period of time, I have a registered startup with me in 650 districts of India.
Wow.
The story of New India, which is taking shape, has moved beyond those 10, 12 big metro towns and cities. It's gone down to the villages and districts of India. The engine of growth of New India is going to be a bottom up. It is no longer going to be top down. और उसमें तुम लोग कहाँ फिट होते हो, अभी से सोचना शुरू करो. और उसका एक फायदा और हो रहा है, जो bottom up है कि each one of those people are coming up with a startup with their experiences and challenges. So you are coming up with solutions in this country which are applicable not just to India, but to the 7 billion of the world's population. Because it's not just the top 500 million where those challenges are being taken care for. And that is where your startups today, I'll give you an example. आपको मैंने बताया था रमन भाई, अक्टूबर 2019 में, before the pandemic started, मेरे पास उसका परमिशन नहीं है, नहीं तो मैं नाम भी दे देता तुम्हें. Top 3 private equity funds of the world. ठीक है? Top 3 बोल रहा हूं मैं. founder of one of them, his personal worth would be more than about कोई 8 billion, 9 billion डॉलर की उसकी पर्सनल वर्थ है. He had come to our office और उसने कहा था कि मुझे आप 12 स्टार्टअप से मिलवा दीजिए, 1 घंटे के लिए आ रहा हूं. He came to my office, cancelled all his appointments. He spent 4.5 hours, spent time with my startups, walked into my room, had invested his personal money in 5 of them. Gave a visiting card कि अगर तुम्हारे भारत से कोई है, send him to me. The reason was, he said, this is the first time I'm seeing startups who are giving me solutions which are to 7 billion of the world's population and not just the top 500 billion. And these are the ones which are scalable, and these are the ones which are easily executable, and which is your biggest strength. They use the capital to its best possible use. They are frugal. The strength of India and Indian startup of frugality, of the ability to pivot their business models and to be able to change themselves to meet the market was best suited जब ये COVID शुरू हुआ था. You know, we have a helpline. Invest India was the first helpline which started COVID के लिए. 25 March 2020, 25th March 2020, we hardly had any PPE in India. Our team was scurrying around the globe to try and get PPEs for all of you. And it was impossible. Flights were closed, supply chains were closed. जहाँ पे few countries में मिल रहा था, they were raising the price every hour and not even giving us quantity, how much they'll give, etc., or quality test. My entire team worked with startups in India who changed their business models. A hosiery company changed its business model to make masks. A cycle company changed its business model to work on ventilators. So what we did is we got startups who had thoughts and ideas. We got them linked in with the bigger companies so that scale could be created. By end of July, that means in 90 days, you had enough PPEs, not just for India, but to export to rest of the world. That was the strength of Startup India. That is what you can achieve when you get together. So that is my second vertical, and Aastha will speak to you more about it. My third vertical is the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative. It is under Professor Vijay Raghavan, who is the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. You remember President Abdul Kalam? He used to be the principal scientific advisor before he became the president. Very interesting on this. What we are doing on this, that all innovation which is happening in the government, IIT labs, Tumhare lab mein, private labs, we are bringing it together and joining the dots. So if you know what was happening just now, they don't talk to each other. You may be wanting to create a new green vehicle. Somebody else is doing the same. If we bring them all together, that technology could change, they could work together, it'll be faster and they'll come up with a better product. Ek hum wo kar rahe hain. And dusra, we are fast tracking it to commercialization. So we are taking all these innovations. For example, we are working with the Border Security Force. We are working with Delhi Police. We are working with the new NDRF, which you know is the disaster relief force of the government, or different ministries in the government, health ministry and all, and bringing them in on how they can be used. For example, one very interesting one, jab tum Delhi se Ashoka jate ho, you see that Gazipur dump. You've seen that dump, right? That big mountain of entire waste dump. Thank you, Krishna. You're saying yes to everyone. What we are doing with that is that we are taking that all, and 80% of that is going to be used to create a road. So we are doing waste to wealth. So we are currently running a number of waste to wealth projects across the country. One very interesting one, you know, wo jo fire burning hoti hai of the farms around Delhi, November, December, may we all go into a bad time. So what we've done, year before last, we started this. It's a new one. वो जो residue रह जाता है जिसको they burn, before they burn it, we are taking it from them. We are paying them for it. It's being converted into pellets, and those pellets are being used to create energy. So we've run that pilot project in Mohali in 2019. It was very successful, and now we are taking. So these kind of new startups are being brought in, and we are doing that. And I'm going to have Aastha speak to you more about it. And the last part is we are digitizing the entire journey of the investor in the government. पहले एक investor आता था, उसने अपनी company लगानी है, तो people would tell you it would take anywhere between 58 to 72 months to get approvals, to start your production, etc. So what happened in this time? Your capital was lying idle and it was losing money because you kept investing. Your money comes only the first commercial production, right? So one thing which Aastha and the team worked was, how can we shorten this entire time distance? I'll give you an example. The world's largest wind power company, uska naam hai Vestas, Vestas. So they do manufacturing plants in many parts of the world. So when they came to India, we were working with them, and we are one of the largest in renewable projects, to manufacture their wind turbine blade in India. And we said, we'll make it the world's largest blade. तो उनका जो कंसल्टेंट था, उसने उनको कहा था कि आपको इंडिया में कम से कम 56-60 months लगेंगे approvals वगैरह में before you start commercial production. You know, Aastha and his team will tell you. So they were sitting in our office. I remember that. I had just walked into them. And one of them had asked the team of Vestas, which had come from overseas, ki how long did it take you from the day you got your board approval to the day your first blade came out of the factory? Which country did you have the best experience in? So they gave the example of a neighboring country. Just give me 1 minute, huh? Guys, just give me 1 minute. Hello? Guys, just half a minute, I'll take, guys. Sir.
Okay, so Kavya is saying switch on the videos or switch off the videos. Let me check. Oh, nice. Oh, page 2, not so nice.
Guys, very sorry. मैं क्या बता रहा था सर? मैं क्या बता रहा था? आपको तो याद ही नहीं होगा सर, आप तो सुन ही नहीं रहे थे.
Vestas.
आस्था वेस्टास
How
बता
much
रहा
time
था.
they took?
तो
You asked them.
yes, तो उन्होंने कहा कि नेबरिंग कंट्री में उनको 19 महीने लगे. They took 19 months in a neighboring country. And our team said, sir, we'll break it. We'll do it better. मुझे लगा ये बिना बात पे बोल रहे हैं. You know how long they did it in India? 14 months, 23 days. And that is where you started seeing the results. In 2021, in the midst of the most unprecedented lockdown in human history, India got an FDI of $81 billion, which is the highest ever FDI it has got in its history. More importantly, it increased its FDI by over 13% at a time when global FDI went down by 35%. You moved your position from number 8 to number 5 as FDI recipient in the world. By the way, I must tell you, you're $3 trillion today in your GDP. In past 60 months, you moved ahead of Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK in 60 months, from number 10 to number 5 in size of your GDP. And you will be 10 trillion by 2030. You'll be number 3. Are you seeing how fast this entire juggernaut is moving? And it has just begun. So in 14 months, 23 days, they got them the approvals and the first manufactured blade came out. What am I trying to tell you? You have to plan your project down to the T for its execution. You have to utilize that capital in the most judicious manner to be able to get your return. Think of your capital from the first day of your production. Focus on that execution of that project. There is nothing better than your ability to execute it. And in my private equity days, whenever we looked at an investor, at least 80% of my analysis was only spent on the management and their team. I used to spend at least 2 to 3 hours just meeting each one of them, trying to see if I could meet them with their families, having a dinner outside with them, also because we had to make a few investments only. Have just to understand what was the mindset, what was the objective, what was the driving force of that person. And then to see how the team together fit in that jigsaw. Who was bringing the execution skill? Who was bringing the technology skill? Who had the people skills? And to my mind, of all the skills in the world, the most important 2 things. 1, people skills. And the second, your attitude. You have both these right, nothing can stop you. So I've spoken enough, sir. With your permission, Aastha is the one who will actually be taking them through this entire thing. I'm around, Jabbi, but I'll be quiet now and I take it back to you.
So Deepak has to go for the meeting with the Honorable Minister, which came up after we agreed on this time. And Aastha has very kindly agreed to support. Deepak will come back if the meeting there finishes in the next 45 minutes to whatever, and join us back. But Deepak, thank you for sparing the time. Thank you for giving some things which are examples of things that we have spoken about of what they need to do to start a startup. And good luck. We'll be in touch. With that, welcome Aastha. I see we already have you on screen. As Deepak has said, she heads the Startup India Hub team. She's the founding member of that and has seen the ecosystem grow to become the 3rd largest in what we are. She comes from a consulting background at AT Kearney. She's been a banker. She's an MBA in finance, and right now with the many startups that I have investment in, they come and give me gyan to say they spoke to Aastha and that is what she advised, or Aastha's team. So over to you, Aastha, to give us a perspective of what Startup India is, and then we'll take it forward from there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roy, and hi everyone. Good afternoon. It is difficult to come after you've already heard Raman and Mr. Bagla speak, but I think let me flip the side, right? Let me hear from you first. What we will do is, I heard Mr. Roy mentioning that you've already submitted your ideas to him. So let's say you are all, as next steps, planning to begin your own startup. I give you all 50,000 each to take your venture to the next stage. What is the first thing that comes to your mind that you would need support with? So if you can just give it about 30 seconds, 1 minute to think on what will help you to take your idea to the next phase, and you already have about 50,000 with you, so some funding cash is available. I can take some answers whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, Rahel, go ahead.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is I would use that money to finalize my MVP and develop production capabilities, so I have a product that I can sell.
Rahel, and what was your original idea about?
So the idea that I've put in is for a utility pee kit for women who struggle to use public toilets. It would be like a capsule that they can use in a pinch and buy at pawn shops that comes with a toilet seat cover, so they can use public bathrooms and feel better.
Noted. Thank you, Rahel. Go ahead, Pratil. You want to add?
Yeah, so with the 50,000 seed money, I will go with research and development and survey. So to know whether the idea that I have pitched is viable in the market and will be something that can be run in a long run. And my idea was to basically, it's a little complex to explain in short time, but it was basically about food industry. So basically it was how women from tier 2, tier 3 city housewives and people who are at home can make a restaurant based model from home, something on the line of Zomato and Swiggy, but it is only for the home based kitchen type.
Thank you, Pratil. Go ahead, Yashraj.
This is regarding a startup I'm pursuing in my personal capacity about advertising outdoor on trucks using the truck estate. So without the money, I mean, not needing that, just need advice and guidance on the legalities of this, and getting in touch with the correct authorities. Even in the startup before this, money wasn't the thing, but just understanding the rules and regulations and the gray areas is very important.
Noted. Thank you, Yashraj. Okay, I think I've got a good flavor of the challenges of the support area that you would need, right? So right from MVP to managing the production to the R&D survey, knowing what the market wants, to the legalities of how it goes. I've done this survey with people without giving them cash, without giving them money. And the most common answer, 90% of the times people say that we need funds to start. And that, I believe, is the first roadblock whenever you are building a startup, that people often look for money than looking for the right advice. So, like you assumed everyone that cash was sorted and you had money to start. If you can bridge your startup or your idea thinking that this is the first challenge I will anticipate, that will help you pick the first right team member or the mentor to help in your journey ahead. You all heard Mr. Bagla, right, on how he mentioned about Invest India taking the right case study. It's not a very old organization, right? And we Startup India is 6 years old. Invest India goes about a few years older than that. And how we set up finding the right structure, being more flexible, pivoting when it required, and getting the unique places in between. With that, I think I thought I will cover what would be the role of mentors. Now, when you think if money is not the challenge, when would you need mentorship? You have your answers to that. How do you select the right mentor, or what the mentor will add you is about 4 things I wanted to cover. A lot of mistakes I see entrepreneurs often doing is finding cheerleaders for themselves, or is finding people who are believing in their idea as much as they do. It's good to have your own set of cheerleaders, but as long as you don't have people validating, challenging that idea, or telling you things otherwise which you may not, which you be afraid of hearing or don't want to accept, is the biggest acceptance that you can do to yourself. So if you can get the person who has the right knowledge, and they don't simply believe in what you say, but they challenge it well, is the first thing to look in a mentor. The second is the trust, and trust comes only from knowledge and experience, which means, taking the example of one of the person who said, you're looking for advertisement on truck spaces, right? There are too many people either in the advertising space or in the space of running the logistics. If I have to pick a mentor, which one would I pick? Would I go to an advertising agency that will sell me, or pick up a guy in the ad field that will tell me that we can help you with this is how you should go about it? Or will I pick someone? Probably I will pick someone who is a Revigo or a delivery, who is working and speaking with these fleet of truck managers day in and day out, and they know the ground reality of how is it that they think and what will actually take to convince them. A LinkedIn profile of a person will not help you find the right mentor. Knowing what they're capable of bringing on the table is exactly what will help you get the right mentor and target the right person. The third thing I think which we have to keep in mind is defining your own milestones, which means you should know that these are the 3 things I'm looking forward to, be it your traction, be it your customers, be it your validation, be it your increasing production capacity. If you let the mentor guide you, then you're going by what his plan for your business is. If you're clear with what you want, you will have an answer of what am I looking for, and this is what, these are the clear deliverables for me. With that, if I can quickly, Mr. Roy, share my screen and take them.
Go ahead. Do you have the rights? Yeah, you do. Okay.
Yes, I do. I hope my screen is visible to all of you. I see, take that as a nod. So, just leaving this slide for you, that if you are climbing in Everest, if you want to really build a startup that you want envision as a game changer, you really want to show up for yourself, taking you through the different roadblocks that will come in this journey ahead. And mind you, I am not here to present any rosy picture that it will be an easy journey. Everyone is talking about startups, but it is really not for the faint-hearted. It is really not for people who are comfortable in what they're doing. And it's absolutely okay to be comfortable. But the success of the startup only comes after a lot of persistence. And it is just today that we are celebrating the ecosystem so well with the ideas, with the unicorns, with the funding, but it has all taken a long time to build and go about. While the Zomatos, Olas, and Flipkarts of the world were here cheering for the startup ecosystem, building what we today are celebrating, it was in 2016 that the government took the action. Our Honorable Prime Minister announced that today we will be launching the Startup India Action Plan. Apart from the support that is available, I think the biggest thing for you to understand is why startups are being talked about, why you guys are the future of India, is for three prime reasons. One, you are the biggest wealth disruptors today. Take a guess, how much does it, what was the time taken by an Infosys or a Tata to hit their first $1 billion revenue? Any idea in terms of the number of years they would have taken? You can either unmute or put it in the chat window.
At least 2025.
Okay, it's a little higher up than that. It took them about 40 years plus to hit their first $1 billion revenue. The average in which, I'm yet to recalibrate with the last 10 unicorns that have come in the 50 days, but a startup is hitting a valuation of $1 billion in 3 years, 5 years. Look at Mensa 1 year, and that's the pace at which all the startups and unicorns are growing. So that's the power of wealth they are creating today. The second biggest reason is disruption, and that is possible without with the use of technology. When I talk about 1960s, right, and 60% of the Fortune 500 companies, imagine a big Fortune 500 company, 60% of those companies do not even exist now, and the sole reason for that, they fail to disrupt. A research by Barclays also say that startups can produce 3x cheaper and 5x faster. And that's why, look at a Tata. They could have ventured into their own online pharmacy space. What did they do? They entered with 1mg. They could have come up with their own grocery store, but they chose to go ahead with Big Basket. And that's today, that's the power which all of you are bringing on the table by disrupting way faster, way ahead, and being more agile. By being into this ecosystem and culture, which is getting the right support from the length and breadth of the country. With that, I think a lot has already been spoken about the number of unicorns. In fact, our Honorable Commerce Minister Shri Piyush Goyal, who leads the Startup India initiative, this is a meme from his account yesterday, when India had hit the 10th unicorn of this year in a mere span of 50 days. Let me take you back. Why is it today? You look at the Twitter following of any of the unicorn founder. You look at what Shark Tank did. I don't know how many of you enjoyed that show, but they have made entrepreneurship a household name right now. Looking at my gray hair, I would like to take you back to 10 years from now, when at least I used to book my cab, on the street, waving my thumb and stopping a cab. When I used to go out with my family on a Saturday or a Sunday dinner, waiting in line, the manager used to write our names and we used to wait for a table to come. When my father's friend used to sell us an LIC policy, when our pharmacist used to sell us medicines, whatever he wanted to recommend, and we used to sort of accept that. When we were running, I was always, rushing back from school, then rushing to my tuitions, always late, and things like that. And you fast forward to 10 years from now. I don't need to go to my favorite restaurant. I can order at the comfort of my home, thanks to Zomato and Swiggy. I do not need to wave my thumb at the street, thanks to Ola and Uber. I am ordering online medicines. In fact, COVID made that increase to 200%, both the medicines and the consultation. I can know about the policies and book them myself, thanks to Policy Bazaar. I don't even need to go to tuitions now, thanks to the entire change of EdTech and Byju's bringing online classes to us. Everything we do today, everything we consume today, everything we, do today, every consumer trend today, if you go deeper, is influenced by a startup. Hence the change, hence the movement, hence the buzz, hence the entire drive of funds chasing these startups, of unicorns coming day in and day out, of MNCs working with startups, then coming up with their own. So that, my friends, is the power you are bringing into this game. And all I wanted to say that, if you have the right idea, if you have the persistence to go with that idea, the right mentors will come, the right funding will come, because you are the next big disruptors in this entire game. I'll not bore you with numbers, enough has already been seen, but this one slide is the insane reality of how this ecosystem has grown. And the biggest disrupting factor of all these numbers is the fact that startups are the game changers, and it is not any big MNC this day. People are here for the love of returns. People are here for the love of solutions, and you are providing answers to that solutions. What we define as a startup is a company not more than 10 years old and working towards innovation, scalability, and job creation. What our role here is summarized in this slide, and what you can look forward to, be it as a mentor, be it as an ideation stage entrepreneurs, is the support. We have a very special curated program with Upgrad, which gives you the basics of how to make your business plan. So all of those who have ideas can work on that program. It's free of cost, 4 weeks, you get a certificate in the end, and it will give you a business plan in the end. It's a very interactive and a very useful program. We have about more than 700 mentors, which are already there on the website, that can help you, and you can select them based on sector, stage, preference, whatever you need. For people who will just set up in the first 2 years, there is a lot of seed grant and money available, which means it is a money where you are not giving any equity. It is a money which does not have to be returned. It is a grant basis the risk the government is taking in your idea. And this is an often pillar which is ignored or missed upon. So I will be happy to run you through the seed fund schemes that are available under different government modes. As you grow with your journey, right, what is needed beyond money and support is the right market access. The problem has to be big enough for you to solve, to get the right market access, not just in a domestic landscape, but also international. With that intent, we have a big pool of corporates which we work with. We have about 13 international bridges where we work with the counterparts there to help you navigate that market. You need to protect your idea, and that is where the patents come into place, where we give you a fast track patent examination and 80% rebate on the patent application. And often, you will be like, how do I even apply? I don't know how to apply. So there are patent facilitators who are paid by the government to help you apply those patents as well. I think a lot of these incentives I will leave, and probably I will share this presentation, but maybe I think what we can do, if it's just half an hour left, Mr. Roy, do you suggest we take Q&A first, or should I run through the presentation?
Before we get into Q&A with the class, Aastha, I wanted you to talk a little. You meet a lot of startups, and your team does, and that is across the country. Can you give us a feel of what the startups are gaining from mentorship, so that the need for mentorship or etc. is understood by the students here?
Sure. I think let me run that through a case example. We were recently helping a girl entrepreneur. She's from Amity School here in Delhi. She had presented to the minister recently. She's making low-cost sanitary napkins, and the cost is as low as 2.5. Now, when she presented her idea, she's also got funding from Dell to make this. Everything happened, and then the minister got very interested, right? He said that, doing such an amazing job. Let's make the sanitary pads available across the length of the breadth of the country, and let's start with a small pilot with Noida, and let's take it forward. Now, when the Noida DM approached them, we figured that one, the production is low. Second, when the testing was done, the finishing of that did not meet one parameter, which make us go back to how do we do this? And that's where a mentor came into place. Right now, what was happening was we were just trying to improve the finishing element of the product to make it pass the test. When we got the right sector expert, when we got the right subject matter expertise, he told us, this is just one option on how you can do this. Why not we explore a new machinery through which this could be, through which this could not only be produced in bulk, but would also eliminate the finishing test that you're not able to pass. He then connected us with the team from Padman, the original Padman, Arunachal Murugapam, if you know him, on which the movie of Akshay Kumar was based. And then they guided us on what are the other elements which we can use to bring the cost further down. So I think in a nutshell, a mentor, one, opens up your mind to other avenues which were not even in picture before you started with the problem statement. And second, I think it's very important that he opens up the right network for you, which means if there is an answer which he does not have, but he can bring in through one phone call or through his network, the right person that will guide you through it, it will make all the difference. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, wonderful. Aastha, you spoke about the database that you have of mentors by industry, etc. Can you build a little on that so that the students understand what is available to them?
Absolutely. I think I should have highlighted that in a lot more depth also. So what is happening right now? When I started with the Startup India team, we were a small team based in Delhi. But we thought that we will not be able to scale up this model by being available for all the entrepreneurs. And like you heard Mr. Bagla saying, today startups are coming from every district. So how do we bring the network or access to them? Thankfully for all of you, you're going through this course, you have your professors, you have your alum network that you can tap into. But what about the others coming from small cities and towns? With that objective, we built the Startup India website, which acts as the largest virtual incubator today with more than 5.5 lakh users. So like you have a LinkedIn, which is an overall professional network, the Startup India platform has entrepreneurs and startups on one side, and it has investors, incubators, accelerators, mentors on the other side. Just like LinkedIn, you can search them and send them a connection request that, hey, this is what I'm working on. I'd really seek your advice on this. Once the mentor on the other side accepts your request, you can take that conversation forward. You'll be surprised to hear that, even in a short span of about a journey with more than 700 network, about 25,000 mentor connects have been successfully accepted and have been taken forward. So, and this is when something we were not even promoting too actively or organically, it has all happened. And right now, a very interesting program, Mr. Roy, what we're doing with Manoj Kohli from SoftBank, we will be building a national mentorship platform. So look at the next big program that we have. And I think I'll take a little liberty to talk about it before it even releases or gets launched by the minister soon, is that this portal will on one side bring all the mentors from the industry, from the academia, from different sectors who will be willing to give back. So we have a big mentor pool that will be there, and they will be matched made in an intelligent way with the startups on the other hand who need that support. So you will be able to pick up your top 3 selections or choices of the mentors, and everything from your tracking of milestones to seeing how you are progressing to getting you the right network will be done digitally online, and it will be also through a very simple WhatsApp based app that you will be able to track, so you don't have to download any other app. But we also realized that mentorship is the missing link and it has to be scaled up, and that's why we are building this platform, which should be up and live in a couple of months.
Wonderful. I have a couple of other questions, but rather than eating into time, I'll hold them, and if we have time, I'll come to that later. Look at the hands go up. There you are. Okay, yes, Raj, you go first.
Thank you, ma'am, for your talk. My question is that what would you say is the difference between working at Startup India compared to a VC firm? And a follow-up on that is that, Startup India invests in a lot of businesses, but maybe smaller amounts. So VC does the opposite. Can we see a unicorn coming through from Startup India maybe in the coming years?
Beautiful question, Yashraj. I'll start with the first of the journey of working with Startup India versus a VC or an investing firm. When I started, I gave an interview in Ashoka Hotel in Delhi, and I was like, which office is in a hotel? I was scared to go there in a hotel for giving an interview, to see a small room full of young professionals taking this interview, which gave me a lot more different vibe. Like you, I was a campus graduate. I had a PPO in hand. I was working in with a bank, earning a handsome salary, but I had to take a 40% cut and a leap of faith to join this, for the fact that I feel if not now, when? Let me give this a shot. Afterwards, that this whole journey of working towards supporting startups started, and we saw the other side of the government, which means we were now the policy makers, from the ones giving inputs or asking what is in it for us. So the entire flavor of a private or a semi-private arm delivering, hearing from the ecosystem, to shaping those policies, to executing them. So it was a very rich experience that I think I'm still, in a nutshell, I enjoy what I do. And that's what has kept me going for the last 6 years here with Startup India. And now that I look back, those first 2 to 3 years may have been tough. If I looked at the LinkedIn profiles of my peers doing way better, earning handsome salary, now that I look at it, the reward that I see in terms of the policies that we've driven, in terms of the funds we have managed, in terms of the ecosystem that we are celebrating, is huge. So that's the difference out there. In terms of investing, right? I think I'll first say that we don't invest directly. We always do it through partners. I'm taking care of 60,000 plus startups. I cannot invest in all. How do I remove the subjectivity from the government lens that I carry, and avoid any conflict of interest at my end? So the government is not into the business of fund management, but into the business of fund mobilization. So which means you will see where the funds are needed, and you will make policies to enable that. We started only with the fund of funds, which was invested through VCs. So it's not that we don't have a VC fund. We do that as well. SIDBI, which is the Small Industrial Development Bank of India, manages the fund of funds for us, which is 10,000 crore. And it invests through VCs. So if you're into more in the investment size, where you want to see on how to scale up the startups, then that VC model will work best for you. But if you want a mixed flavor of all the different elements we spoke about, then you should look at the policy side. In terms of the number of unicorns, so from the funds which SIDBI has invested through the VCs into more than 500 plus startups, about 11 unicorns have already come. So it's just that as a government, we don't do a good job of marketing what we do. And even those funds will not know that they got this funding from the government, but that's the true picture. You take the examples of Lenskart and a lot of unicorns like that. They had also got funding from the initial fund of funds by SIDBI. What we did beyond that was we realized that VC phase पे gap इतना नहीं है जितना early stage पे risk capital पे, risk value of debt देखोगे startups ideation stage पे ज़्यादा, they are dying. And that's where we thought, let's come up with another policy. Let's come up with, if we will not believe in our startups, who else will be? And that's why we conceptualized and executed the Startup India seed fund scheme. So I have a colleague here of mine from IIT Delhi. She worked for the last 2.5 years to make this policy through, and is now, we are now executing it. So that's the difference to answer Yashraj.
Thank you.
Swarna, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Aastha, for your talk. So my question is about, can you just elaborate about some of the schemes and initiatives of Invest India in the previous year, and what impact have they delivered? And just a small clarification, I just wanted to know another question. What is the relationship between Invest India and Startup India? Are they different bodies, or do they work in collaboration with each other?
Thank you, Swarna, for that question. I'll start with the second one because it's easier to explain. So, Invest India, Startup India, we are the execution arm for the government of India, which means what the government is also doing right now is that they're creating autonomous structures so that the decision making, the implementation is faster. And that's where their own consultants or their own startup comes into place. So for all practical purposes, Startup India is under Ministry of Commerce. We are funded by them. We are supported by them. We are driven by them. I have my reviews with them. But as a legal entity, Invest India houses Startup India Hub, which also brings us, which also enables us to bring cross-team synergies. Like Mr. Bagla mentioned about the waste to wealth, about Office of Principal Scientific Advisor, about commercializing innovation. So the teams collaborate so that a common solution could be given to the problems we are trying to solve. So Startup India is housed under Invest India. Both I report to Ministry of Commerce, and the program as a structure belongs to them. To answer the first question, in terms of the impact in the scheme, I would broadly divide this into three aspects, starting with funding. We have the fund of funds of 10,000 crore. More than 5,500 crores has been given by SIDBI to 80 plus VC firms. Now look at the beauty of this fund. The policy says that 2x of the contribution of SIDBI will go to DPIT eligible startups. So about 500 startups have enabled. And like I mentioned, government is in the role of fund mobilization, which means agar maine abhi tak 5,500 lagaye hain, I as an investor only invest up to 20% in a fund. So agar 100 crore ka fund hai, 80 crore bahar se aa rahe hain, but 2x of my contribution, 40 crores will go to DPIT eligible startup. And the mobilized funds from 5,000 of my investment have now led to 35,000 crore of funds available in the ecosystem. So that's the power of catalyzing effect we are looking into. Then we have the seed fund of 945 crores, which invests about 20 lakh of grants. So agar jab aap log bhi apne businesses shuru karoge, incorporate karoge, you can either look up to 20 lakh grants or 50 lakh of convertible debt. More than 150 plus startups have already been funded, and this model works through incubators, and it could also be virtual incubation given the times we are in. So about 20 plus incubators are already there across India, and startups have already started getting funding, with the long-term impact is to hit 3,000 entrepreneurs in the next 4 years. When I talk about market access, the second element of a support, I talked about international market access. As a growth stage startup, you will need that. So I have 13 countries supporting me in and out. If you want to go to Japan, the JETRO team there will say, this is how you can navigate. This is my network, access it. You look at Korea, I have a co-working center in Cyber City where Indian and Korean startups can collaborate and work and things like that. We have domestic market access, working with more than 200 corporates offering more than 2.5 crores and of mentorship and pilot orders already. And the third element, which is a little tricky, is of government market access. Some of you may be working on a solution जिसमें government ही end buyer है. मतलब government is the buyer. How do you convince कि government tenders जो usually table chair के लिए निकलते हैं कि वो एक innovative solution ले? If you look at the ITO area, वहाँ पे बहुत बड़े there are water sprinklers and a device which cleans the air. All those are startup products, and today the government are also looking at enabling innovations within their own department. So sensitizing the government department to procure innovation was also our task, and we're still doing that. But what we have enabled is through the government e-marketplace, we've created a dedicated section to highlight innovation. Abhi tak more than 36,000 orders in startups ko diye gaye hain through the GEM platform. So a lot is done on the market access bit. The third is this ecosystem, right? Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore se to startups aa hi rahe the. We thought that we have to help entrepreneurs come from every nook and corner so that today, they will be the next big job creators. And that's what, we have done, and we're still doing. 60,000 plus startups coming from more than 650 plus districts, and each state today has one startup. What we also did was we worked on the state policies. Jab humne shuru kiya, there were only 4 states in ki dedicated startup policy thi. Today, 30 of them have a policy where my team members have helped actively done that. So that's some KPIs for you, and I hope that answers.
Thank you, Aastha. Sahaj.
Yes, Professor. Hi, Astha. So my question is around one of the things that you would see on a daily basis. So you can come across a lot of startups. So I wanted to understand from you, what are some of the common challenges that you see in startups, especially when it comes to execution and scaling? And secondly, what are some things that you look, I mean, that strike out to you when you look at a startup the first time?
Thank you, Sahaj. I think I would say if we do come across a lot of startups, of course, the challenges remain common, right? Some challenges remain common. And one of the challenges I also spoke about was people start looking at funding too early without even knowing where that fund will go. Just भेड़ चाल में हमें भी investment दिला दो, in VC से connect करवा दो, without even having a product validated, right? And I'll tell you the true story. When we were speaking to the Lenskart founders, they told, like, we were just so much heads down into our own business, working in a garage, doing well. And the investors followed us. They came knocking at their door asking, okay. And trust me, today, investors are more hungry for deal flow, looking at the right investments, looking at the right startup. But अगर आप ये channel को change कर दोगे ना, पहले ही investment लेने लगोगे, without having your product ready, it's not a very long sustainable model. So the biggest advice one would be to have first a product validated and try and be self-sustainable. The second, I think I often always say, is that sure, you should make your, you should learn, we should all make our mistakes, but don't make a mistake which has been made a lot. आप दूसरों के मिस्टेक से पहले ही सीख जाओ, अपनी नई मिस्टेक्स करो. एंड दैट हैपेंस बिकॉज यू वर्किंग इन योर ओन साइलो एंड बबल. अगर आप दो लोगों से बात कर लोगे, या इफ यू विल नो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, मे बी यू विल नॉट मेक द सेम मिस्टेक. सो एटलीस्ट डोंट बी इन योर ओन बबल कि this is what it will click. I know I am 100% confident, but if you can be a little more flexible to validate it, to test it, and to not repeat, that will help. The third I see is asking help, which is very common. There is no information dearth right now. One is looking out for the right information, and Startup India website tries and addresses that. But every time I have to guide people who stand out are the ones who ask me, I read this on your website, how do I avail it? Or, you go deeper into that. So the biggest thing which makes people stand out is when they've done their homework and when they know what their ask is. So that will also help me give you the clear next steps than just stalling it to the information level at first. What also makes the entrepreneur stand out is their passion and willingness to take feedback. A lot of times people are afraid to pivot. They're too stuck on their original idea. But if you pivot, you don't know the potential, or you never know what could be achieved. So taking active feedback. And I think not enough is highlighted about the team. It may be a one-army man, or it may be a show, but I'm not looking at an IIT background or an IIM. But what we look at is the passion in the team members and the story that they tell. If we see that, I think that is what sets them apart. So that would be to your answer.
Thanks, Aastha. Shubham.
Thank you, Aastha, for the talk. So I'm also quite excited about these unicorns coming in, and I really acknowledge the fact that they have created a lot of ease in our life. But to sort of play the devil's advocate, I was thinking the Amazon, which we are having, grocery delivery, Ola, Uber for taxi service, and Byju's and all others. But at the same time, when I see some local Kirana guy having less business because of grofers, or some electronic shop having less business because of Amazon, and eventually, like, there were used to be a lot of entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs who used to drive taxi, they were their owners, but now they Ola, like under Ola, Uber, and their margins are sort of becoming less. So I just sort of get concerned, like, in which direction we are going as an economy? And I can ask you this question because, Startup India is a sort of public initiative, government initiative. So don't you think this unicorn and all this startup glamour is in a way coming at the cost of that Kirana store who is now having a bit of less business? So sometimes it really concerns me. So what do you think about it? And like, what's the way go forward regarding it? Because in India specifically, we have a lot of semi-skilled population. So maybe this system might be apt for certain Western countries where their population is decreasing and aren't a lot of educated folks. But in India, like, how do you exactly see this?
Shubham, thank you for that question, and I truly appreciate your thinking to even look at the other spectrum and put this across. What I would like to address is two things, right? Every product that is built today, be it by a startup or a company, is addressing the needs of the Bharat. It is, you look at Zomato, all the examples you took, right? There is no taking away the Kirana store. The Kirana store now may be able to deliver faster using a Grofar or a Zepto or a Blinkit, and that's the connectivity that is being enabled for them. But the idea is not to skip this chain or channel, but to empower them enough to come and digitally connect and provide the access which otherwise they would have failed to provide. To give you a very small example, फ्लिपकार्ट के प्लेटफॉर्म पे हर सेकंड में 4 लाख के ऑर्डर्स जनरेट होते हैं टू एवरी वेंडर. अगर मैं अकेले अपने किराना स्टोर से अगर मैं इतना बेच पाता, I may not have been on the Flipkart also. So look at the wealth creation which is also being enabled through these platforms for vendors which did not have access to the market beyond their 5 kilometer of radius. So it is one, empowering them, it is for them, and there are times when some businesses, some individuals would have been affected, but I think they have to ride on this wave and not nowhere was the intention to do away with this. It was only to empower, and this is speaking on behalf of the startup story, which I understand and see from the different business model. You look at Zomato employing so many riders, giving them the support. Big startups that are coming are actually catering to the needs of the MSC market. You look at Khata book करके आ रहे, वो accounting digitize कर रहे हैं MSMEs के लिए कि वो survive करे और आगे बढ़े, right? So there are a lot of these examples which are just empowering them and making them survive, because even if they are not able to use technology or adapt, they may not be able to survive otherwise in this world. So maybe I think I would have partially answered this, and Mr. Roy, I would suggest if you have additions to his answer, but it was a very deep question.
We'll cover some of that, Shubham. Thank you very much. Radhika, you were here earlier. I don't know how you managed to make technology move you all the way back. Do you want to go in next?
Yeah, I got kicked out because of technology, Professor. So yeah, thank you for joining us, Aastha. So my question was more along the lines of, we've been talking about mentorship in terms of guidance from people who are senior in experience or are up in the hierarchy in a sense. So somebody who would either senior to you in age or senior to you in the experience that they possess in a field. But we've also done some reading in class that highlights the importance of finding mentors within your peers and people of technically equal status to you. So what role do you think peers and your team just generally has played in guiding you as your mentors rather than someone who's senior to you in experience? And what role do you think they should continue to play for all of us in class today?
Thank you, Radhika. I think a very pertinent question to start with. In my address, I also mentioned that, we have never, a LinkedIn profile or the position of that person will not help you find the right mentor. And I think that's what my approach has been.
And we'll talk a little more about that, Radhika.
If I know, right, there are in my team, I started from a 5-member to a 45+ team right now. Fairly flat hierarchy, but knowing how that person contributes, knowing how that person gives me a challenging status quo. Okay, we have been doing this, but why not we do like this? Or maybe, we were earlier thinking of an entrepreneurship course for schools ourselves. Should Startup India be doing that? And, can we do something with AICT? And to that, one of the team members said that, some of them are already doing, but they're not getting to opt grades or, get the credits, do it. So, there were always people I appreciate who put in the right facts than painting a rosy picture. That will help me brainstorm better and come up with a better hypothesis from what I started. So be it your peers, be it your companions, be it your family, if you have the person who can challenge what you are saying and ask you the right whys which justify to what you are doing, that is that is an honest person which you should keep. What I also try and do when I'm looking for mentors for me or within the team or within a policy is that unless I know what's happening on the ground, unless let's say we were all brainstorming on Women's Day, aa raha hai, hum kya kare? And we were like कि हर साल event करके छोड़ देते, क्या हो रहा है? So we talked to, we spoke to 5 women on what is it that they actually want. And apart from pitching, which we've done so far, and then we realized that a very new idea came and a very new need came. There are so many loan schemes claiming कि हमें loans मिलेंगे अगर आप women entrepreneur हो. 5 schemes को call करके पूछो, बैंक level पे, branch level पे पता भी नहीं उन्हें कि scheme किस बारे में है. I got my problem statement from there, and this will come if you speak to the right set of people, how big or small. And this problem actually came from entrepreneurs who are just starting. And if I would have approached someone like a unicorn co-founder or a founder, this ground level reality would not even have come to me. So I would say that have a top-down approach also when you're trying to find solutions, and be there to ask the right set of people.
Okay, Pratil.
Professor, it was Grisha and then me.
Yeah, Professor,
Oh,
technology.
okay, you guys keep shifting.
No,
Thanks. That's the new usage of technology. Just to have smoke come out of my ears.
No, Professor, the
Okay,
campus
Krisha,
Wi-Fi.
go ahead.
The campus Wi-Fi went out for everyone, so it's pretty bad. I had 2 questions. First was pretty much answered, so I'll ask the second one. We're doing really well in terms of seeing people know about startups and even starting it ourselves, as we saw from almost all districts. But we're still nowhere there where we would want to be in terms of awareness and actually implementing ideas, right? As one of the articles in our readings we saw, 90% of startups fail because of mentorship and because we don't know how to run it. So I just wanted to understand what are the policies Invest India and Startup India have to increase that awareness, because at the same time, while we're encouraging people who have already started businesses, we also want to encourage people to know and have the confidence of how to start a business if they would, especially from rural areas. So I just wanted to understand if you had any policies on that.
Sure. I'll give you a 3-part answer to that. One, taking a very small anecdote, जब एक rocket space में जाता है, it is only on its corrective path or the orbit only 90% of the time, and yet it reaches. The only reason it reaches is because of the corrective course of action it takes on the journey along to space. So the first reason is if you do not take a corrective action at periodic steps, you're less likely to reach your final destination. So do not fail to change from what you started to where you are today. And if you look at a lot of founder stories, जब ओला ने कैब्स शुरू की थी तो उन्होंने पहले इंट्रा सिटी शुरू की थी. भावेश स्टार्टेड कि हमने पहले एक सिटी से दूसरी सिटी, वो इतनी नीड नहीं हुई. Then we came to the bigger problem of doing it within a city and then scaling it up. So I didn't catch that. Could you try again? Sorry about my Siri trying to interfere in between. But people should not stick to the original idea and keep adapting it to the market need. That's one. Second, as a policy, we also realize, and 90%, like you said, of the startups may not survive or will eventually fail. What we thought was that we should not encourage or dispersuade a startup to get stuck in the compliances of shutting a business down. So, there is a faster exit policies, especially for startups, where you can wind up the business within 60 to 90 days, and that as the policy was constituted. Otherwise, it's too soon for you to know what the exit compliances are, but exit compliances also are very challenging, which we are trying to smoothen for the startups so that you can wind up soon, move to your next idea. The third thing, I think, which we haven't done enough right now, we are all celebrating successes, talking about unicorns, but you will see Startup India coming up with a campaign on restarters, on celebrating failures, on people who may not have done well in their first, second venture, but have eventually come up with new ventures and are doing well. And Abhiraj from Urban Company, there's a partner at Sequoia. Many such names are in pipeline. We will be covering their stories on how they failed, how they moved on to the next phase of journey, and that it is okay to fail. So normalizing failure and celebrating it will be should also be talked about often.
That
Thank you,
in the
but I
Indian environment is a little challenging, but it's a great start we'll make, and that's a cultural shift that we really need for the startup ecosystem to really take off.
Professor, I'm sorry.
Prithvi,
Just one thing. It was more
yeah,
about
sorry, Krisha, go ahead.
no issues. I'm just I was asking more about how you want entrepreneurs to encourage them to start it in rural areas. I was talking more about that. So how do you spread
Sure.
awareness?
I think from an awareness point of view, I'll tell you exactly what we did, right? We were, like I mentioned, Delhi se jitna ho pa raha tha, ho raha tha. When we started, my team used to answer, we had a toll-free helpline. Every day there used to be a newspaper ad with PM's picture, and we used to get 500 calls every day. Startup kya hai, kaise kare, kya kare. Eventually managed to came over the calls, answering frequency and things like that. One thing which we still haven't left today is answering emails ourselves so that we know what's happening on ground. And to answer your particular question on the information is, in 2017, 16 this movement came, 17 we did a Startup India Yatra, where my team went to all the states, to all the districts, and we did ideation boot camps in vernacular languages. हमने English, Hindi में भी नहीं करे, हमने उनकी language का partner ढूंढा so they understand it better. They come up with an idea. We tell them how to pitch that idea to us. There was a jury panel, and states के साथ ही tie up करके हमने उन्हें incubation office भी करवा दिए. So about 22 states तक हमने तब cover की थी. 98 lakhs of incubation offers went, and a lot of ideas from there are actually now working as startups. So I think that exercise really helped us drive information at the ground level. And wherever we could not do those boot camps, there was a Yatra van. We had a van that used to go through those districts, that used to pass on this information कि आप startup कैसे करो, startups के साथ आपको क्या benefits मिलेंगे, and things like that. So I think that exercise really helped with the information dissemination we were looking. Apart from that, there was the center support, and then there was the state support. So when the state policies come up about anything, it takes to the next level of push. So today, 30 states and 23 nodal departments are already there driving the ecosystem. And that also brings a big push talking about the information that they need to support. I hope I've answered your question now.
Professor, you're on mute.
Oops, I'm speaking on mute. Pratik, go ahead.
Yeah. Aastha, first of all, thank you for this insightful talk on startup ecosystem in India. We have seen that how India is doing very well in startup, like top in unicorns and number of startups that are coming. But one thing, my question is more on the policy perspective. We have seen that India has drastically improved in ease of doing business from 2015, like 142 to 63rd in 2019, but still the legal compliances and all the compliances that we have to go through, like even the like the guest speaker Bagla was talking about how we took 14 months. I still think that this is a long period of time, and there is a still scope of improvement for ease of doing business. Despite being on the top of the startup ecosystem in the world, we are somewhere very below in the ease of doing business. We don't still have the single window system or single where every compliances can be done through a single window. So I would just like to know, like, what is stopping us to go into the policy perspective so ease of doing business in India gets more easy, so even people coming from rural India or not so educated can get their work done, because we know red tapeism in India is still something that makes people very difficult to go and complete all the regulations and everything. So I wanted to know a little perspective on that.
Pratil, I have the answer in your question itself. A few months ago, Honorable Minister did launch a national single window clearance platform with the same objective, like you mentioned, that I just have to select the sector I'm coming in and the state I want to set up my operations in. That will throw up the list of compliances that will apply to me, and through the same platform I can also apply. So I don't need to run at different places, but I just through one platform will apply. So I think this is a game changer and a revolution in itself. So right now, about 13 states have onboarded and more are in process, but the phase 1 is already an Invest India. My CTO, who actually built my website, is now working on building this single window clearance platform. And I think I would encourage you all to also check it out. Even your startup registration, आपको startup में भी recognition चाहिए, it can be done through the same platform. So we are taking the leap towards what you have mentioned, and I'm glad you could think of that idea this early in stage, and it is happening. It is getting implemented.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, my cursor is stuck. Who's next? Nitin, go ahead.
Finally, I've been moving down the order. Yeah, thank you. So a bit of the mentorship part, but regarding something regarding the not-for-profit or social sector startups, whether registered as like a zero profit company, NGO, or foundation, society, trust, irrespective of that. I was wondering, I mean, why they have like so serious compliances in India. Like India and China are the two countries where it's the worst. I believe Startup India and Invest India are helping startup in that sector as well, especially given the case you talked about when you connected the person to the real life padman and all. So that's the primary question I had. Is any policy being worked or any policy changes being worked in that area, or any suggestions to the government?
Is your question specifically on the NGO or the social sector, or is it for compliances at large?
Compliances at large, primarily the social sector company, the compliances that are faced by the social sector companies.
Okay, so I think not digging deeper into the social sector compliances, there is always a two side of every story, right? And this I learned by being in the ecosystem when we were trying to resolve the angel tax exemption. On one side, there were investors who wanted to say कि, you know, valuation, fair market value, जब मैं invest करूँ तब कुछ है, बाद में कुछ है, and why does the tax officer come and, you know, claim so much from me, and this is the future value I see in the business. On the other side, if you look at it, the scope of misuse, and being Indians like we are, or any of that for that matter, we always find a loophole in every policy on how that could be twisted, turned to, you know, to be construed. Ultimately, we are dealing with taxpayers' money. Ultimately, we are dealing with things that could, you know, that could otherwise be channelized. So when you come across cases and examples of how the regulators are thinking on how they're trying to safeguard, it will give you a whole new perspective. And thanks to this job, I've got to learn that. But the solution always lies at a midpoint. So what we did was, when we tried and resolved the angel tax exemption for startups, was we heard both the sides and we earmarked or fenced an area where we say that we are putting these stipulations that the investor, to see if the investor or the investment is eligible, and we'll see how it goes. And touch wood, beautifully, it is working well for us. To answer your second question, you know, I myself, my team have registered a company ourselves. कि हम देखें तो ये कौन से compliances की बात होती है कि इंडिया में register करना मुश्किल है या कंपनी चलाना मुश्किल है. We created a big document and a checklist कि अगर ये चीजें solve हो जाए इस step पे, या मेरा name check नहीं आ रहा, या मुझे एक ही बार इस 5 form बता दे my name will get rejected so that I don't have to do to and fro. And we had very minute observations like this, which we shared with MCA, and a lot of them have resolved. What I see is a lot of hearsay also right now. जो companies बाहर जा रही हैं, they're not going to countries where the tax regime is stricter. They're going to tax haven countries, and I'm not naming any. But if you do a little deep dive into exact headquarters that they're going, you will have your answers. So, the question really is, give us the problems which you want to resolve, and we are here to resolve it. But don't go by hearsay.
Just a follow.
Or is it for compliances at large?
Compliances at large, primarily the social sector the compliances that are faced by the social sector companies.
Okay, so I think not digging deeper into the social sector compliances, there is always a two side of every story, right? And this I learned by being in the ecosystem when we were trying to resolve the angel tax exemption. On one side, there were investors who wanted to say कि, valuation, fair market value, जब मैं invest करूँ तब कुछ है, बाद में कुछ है, and why does the tax officer come and, claim so much from me, and this is the future value I see in the business. On the other side, if you look at it, the scope of misuse, and being Indians like we are, or any of that for that matter, we always find a loophole in every policy on how that could be twisted, turned to be construed. Ultimately, we are dealing with taxpayers' money. Ultimately, we are dealing with things that could otherwise be channelized. So when you come across cases and examples of how the regulators are thinking on how they're trying to safeguard, it will give you a whole new perspective. And thanks to this job, I've got to learn that. But the solution always lies at a midpoint. So what we did was, when we tried and resolved the angel tax exemption for startups, was we heard both the sides, and we earmarked or fenced an area where we say that we are putting these stipulations that the investor, to see if the investor or the investment is eligible, and we'll see how it goes. And touch wood, beautifully, it is working well for us. To answer your second question, I myself, my team have registered a company ourselves. कि हम देखें तो ये कौन से compliances की बात होती है कि इंडिया में रजिस्टर करना मुश्किल है या कंपनी चलाना मुश्किल है. We created a big document and a checklist कि अगर ये चीजें solve हो जाए इस step पे, या मेरा name check नहीं आ रहा, या मुझे एक ही बार spice form बता दे कि my name will get rejected so that I don't have to do to and fro. And we had very minute observations like this, which we shared with MCA, and a lot of them have resolved. What I see is a lot of hearsay also right now. जो companies बाहर जा रही हैं, they're not going to countries where the tax regime is stricter. They're going to tax haven countries, and I'm not naming any. But if you do a little deep dive into exact headquarters that they're going, you will have your answers. So, the question really is, give us the problems which you want to resolve, and we are here to resolve it. But don't go by hearsay.
Just a follow-up.
Okay, Nathan, I'm just trying to manage the time. We are at 4:41.
Yes,
Go ahead, Nathan.
Follow-up.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I mean, so for a company which is maybe not necessarily a startup and have moved to a stage ahead, I mean, why cannot they be a self-sustainable where 100% of their like operating expenses come from revenues instead of having to rely on the donations and all? I mean, in order to get the tax exemption and all.
Okay, we will talk about it when we've done the 8th class or the 9th class, Nitin. That is a very interesting question, and it is between a lifestyle business and a value creating business, and that is the fundamental distinction, and that is the choice the founders have to make. So we'll talk about it a little downstream. Not downstream today, but a few weeks down the way we've structured the sessions. So hold your breath. No, don't hold your breath. You'll die. So, Yashraj, didn't you come in earlier?
But Professor, I raised my hand again, went through the full line.
Okay. Then quickly, because
Right. I just
I
wanted to
don't want to get into the break time.
Yes, I just wanted to understand, as an intern at Startup India or Invest India, do we get to hear different startups pitches and help them get off the ground and provide support? And if yes, even if no, like what is the procedure to apply for college students?
I think depends on the role that we are hiring you, even as an intern. So if you are a part of the seed team, you will get to see startup applications. If you're part of the recognition team, you will get to hear startups and what ideas they have. Sometimes it's more on the strategy side, sometimes it's more on the research side, but depending on the team. And the procedure is simple. You can just mail your CV either to the HR or to me, and we will see how that goes. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. That's just 2 minutes late. Thank you for sparing the time for us, and thank you for very insightful gyan on the ecosystem and